standing at the border of what we used to know. 5 points in the darkness make a different kind of show. They say we're better together, but what do they know when the stars align differently down here below? And maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. Remember all the stories that your granddad told about a republic that wouldn't be controlled. Now the suits in the city say we've all been sold, but there's a fire burning that just won't get old. And maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. They draw their lines on paper, we draw ours in the sand. Some dreams are getting closer, while some don't understand. Don't understand. The highways stretch forever toward a setting sun, where cattle graze on memories of battles won. They say unity's the answer, but maybe we're done with playing by the rules of the chosen ones. Oh, maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. Maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. Our own sky. Our own sky.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Late Night Coffee Talk. Sorry about not being here last week. Apologies, but I am here now, and I'm glad to be here, right? We've had already, it's hard to comprehend that we are almost an entire month into 2026 already, but nonetheless, here it is. Time flies, right? So anyway, we are good to go this week, and I am going to go ahead and start off with the business because I want to maximize our time here tonight. For those of you joining us for the first time, I'm Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist movement, and this is Late Night Coffee Talk. This is that time of the week where I take a break from working on Texas independence to come in here, pour yet another cup of coffee, and just so you guys understand what kind of day it's been, here's the empty one, right? And that's just since I sat down here to do this. So I pour yet another cup of coffee, and I fire up this camera, and I talk to you guys, and you talk to me, right? You submit your questions, I give you answers, and we talk about whatever you want to talk about, whether it's TEXIT, the TNM, Texas politics, Texas culture, the greater world at large. Even occasionally, you guys ask personal questions, which I'm not averse to. But you guys drive how this goes, right? How long we go and what we talk about. So if you want to be a part of the conversation, this is what you need to do. First and foremost, if you are watching on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Additionally, chat is active over there, so drop your questions in the chat, and we'll go take a look, and that's where we pull from, right? Additionally, look, share this with your friends, right? Let them know. Even if you don't have friends, share it with people you don't like. That's even more fun, right? But if you're watching on X, then you do kind of the same thing, right? Just drop your question in the chat. Be sure to give the profiles a follow while you're on there. Share it, repost. I mean, it used to be called retweet, right? Repost it, I guess. If you're watching on Facebook, same drill. Just post your question in the chat. Be sure to like and comment while you're there. If you're watching on Rumble, same situation. Drop your question in the chat. Be sure to like and share with everyone. And of course, for those of you out there that are members of the TNM that are on TNM Social, right? Oh, look, I have a notification for TNM Social. Okay, it says that I am now live. Yes, I am, according to TNM Social, I am now live. Whew, thank goodness. I don't know how I would have behaved had I not known that. But look, here's TNM Social, right? If you're on TNM Social, you get something special, right? You get your own chat, right? That is exclusive to you. So be sure to do that. If you haven't downloaded the TNM Social app, be sure to do that. You can go to tnm.social, register your account, or additionally, you can just go to the Apple App Store or to the Google Play Store, search for TNM Social, and download it straight from there, and you can register there too. So then you get access to the cool stuff. Our own network just for us. So let me get another sip of the goodness here. Yeah, that works out. This is going to be a good one tonight. I have a sneaking suspicion. Oh, and I forgot. If you don't want to do any of those, right? You don't feel comfortable sharing your question in chat, you can always email it. You'll see the email address right down there at the bottom coming up. It's coffeetalk@thetnm.org. Coffeetalk@thetnm.org. Email your questions in, and more of you do that. You send your questions in. So let me go ahead real quick and get to some of these. Oddly, even though we have moved or doing a lot of the live stream on TNM Social, many of you are still doing something cool, which is this, like David, who just became a YouTube channel member. David, thank you very, very much for becoming a YouTube channel member. Just so you guys know the difference, right? A TNM membership is access to all the TNM things. YouTube channel membership goes directly to helping us continue to produce video content that's public facing, that's out there for everyone. And so that's what the YouTube channel membership does. And a thank you from Sean, right? He says, howdy from Fulshire. He wanted to drop his comment in there. He's been a YouTube channel member for 6 months now. So you can tell we've been doing this program for a while. But Sean, howdy from Fulshire. Well, actually, howdy from Nederland to Fulshire, right? Okay. So let's get down to it. Let's get to your questions. Man, you guys are starting to drop them in here. Let me check over here first. Oh, man. Let's see what we got here. Okay, interesting question tonight. Oh, you know what? Before I do that, before I get to your questions, because I'll give you guys a little time to get some more of them in. I kind of like to operate from a bag of questions over here, right? Before I get to that, let me talk about something that's kind of been, I would say, the last couple of weeks, really since the beginning of the year, has really been um, a recurring theme, not necessarily of questions on Coffee Talk, but sort of in general. And many of you have been asking about uh, Alberta. You've been asking about the status of the Cal Exit movement. We had an article that hit on the Texian Partisan late last week, I think it was, maybe early this week. You know, it all kind of runs together. But essentially, you know, an article about New Hampshire, they're going to have a hearing on a bundle of bills dealing with New Hampshire independence. And so I've had what's interesting has been there's been a lot of questions, a lot of chatter about all these other independence movements and some of the things that are transpiring over there, including this discussion about Scotland perhaps having another referendum without the permission of the UK Parliament, or Quebec talking about yet another independence referendum. And we've had multiple approaches from the independence folks in Nuevo Leon. And if you are watching, our apologies. I promise you we will get to you ASAP. But looking forward to that discussion, by the way. But there has been, it's been really interesting because all of these things are popping in the media, right? Saskatchewan firing up an independence movement, the rather untimely folding of the Alaskan Independence Party. And a lot of the questions or comments, I'm just sort of topic areas that people keep dancing around are really related to our interface, our touch with these various organizations. And so I wanted to take a moment to address some of that because some of you may or may not know this. Now, I just listed off a whole passel of places that are firing up independence movements, right? They either have them, they're firing them up. In some cases, like Alaska, they're having their own difficulties, but there is absolutely no doubt whatsoever that there is this global sentiment toward decentralization, right? Something we've talked about for many, many, many years. And it doesn't seem to be dying off. It doesn't seem to be turning down any whatsoever. And, you know, I think for a lot of the people that are opposed to what we're doing here in Texas, I think that's got to give them great anxiety, right? There is here in Texas, there is always something, and I suspect it's this way for a lot of these other places as well. When there's this global expression very publicly happening with people asserting their independence or wanting to assert their independence, and you see it happening in other places, it always has a favorable impact on sentiment here in Texas. So you take some of those external factors, right? That idea of this synergy between self-determination movements and independence movements, and then you overlay it with the current political situation here in Texas and as part of the United States. And what you get is a recipe, obviously not just those things, but you get this recipe for how it is, how it has the potential to propel Texas into a tremendous momentum going into the general election and after the general election going into the legislative session. So for those of you who are curious about sort of how our nexus with these guys, how we connect with them, rest assured that we try to regularly, I'm not going to say, I think regularly would be it, but more often than not, stay in communication with a lot of these other independence movements. We have this sense that we should pay it forward, right? For those of you who don't know, before the founding of the TNM, there was a lot of discussion with a lot of independence movements around the world, and as part of this 2-year study. And we feel like for us, it really is somewhat of a debt that we need to pay forward. So a lot of these newer independence movements, ones that may even be older than us, that may be struggling, anytime that we can communicate with them, offer them experience, consultation, we do that, right? We want to do that, and we believe that it's necessary because at the end of the day, as cliche as it may sound, a rising tide raises all ships. And that's ultimately what we want to do here. We want to, by helping, a lot of times helping those others become successful, we are indeed helping ourselves. So those of you who have asked, we've been in touch with Alberta or Saskatchewan or the Quebecois, or I mean, any of those others that I listed. Understand that we are in as much communication as we can be, and to various levels and extents. And I'll leave it at that. It's best left most of it unsaid. But yes, we do wish for the success of all of us, right? All right. Excuse me. Let's see what we got going on here. Oh, yeah. And you know what? I would be remiss if I did not tell everybody to keep your eye on the weather. I have spoken with many people, and they are preparing for the impending inclement weather. So, take care of yourself, be safe out there, and be prepared. Let me go ahead and give a big thank you to Eric Riddle for his $55 contribution tonight. He went right on the portal. Matter of fact, for those of you that are watching on the live stream on TNM Social, you have a mechanism to go direct and contribute directly. But for those of you watching us on other platforms here, let me make it easy for you. So Google doesn't go in and take 30%. There is a QR code. Up there's a QR code. If you can scan, if you're watching on your phone, I know it's virtually impossible, but there it is. If you're watching on a larger screen, computer screen, whatever, you can hit that QR code. It'll take you there. You can donate directly to the TNM, and you don't have to give Google and the tech gods 30% or whatever it is of your contribution. Okay, questions. So this was last week. Stacy asks, she says, did you see, didn't I cover this? This feels like I covered this one already. Yeah, I think I did. This seems familiar. Huh. Did you see the Chris Salcedo show today? A guest said that if Minnesota doesn't like federal immigration policy, it should secede. Do you think these latest events could spur the formation of the Minnesota Nationalist movement, or a serious movement in any of the other sanctuary states for that matter? Let me do this. And for those of you out there, you people who love to troll us and watch us that hate us, go ahead, and I'm just going to tell you ahead of time, go ahead and clip this one. If anyone in Minnesota, right, and I'm not getting into the policy aspect of it at all, but if Minnesota is really serious about wanting to separate and become their own, we will help you. And some people may say, well, that means that you're supporting these people that hate ICE. It doesn't mean that at all. I'm just saying that if Minnesota doesn't like it, they have a way, and we will show them that way. We will show you how you can do it. I don't have to agree with a state or a group of people politically on policy to say, maybe their best option, if they want to run things the way they want to run it, maybe their best option is out. But I'm going to tell you why I don't think that that's really what they're after. They want to put on a show, Tim Waltz and those guys, they want to put on a show. We're standing strong, but understand that all of this, I mean, if you want to look at the whole daycare fraud situation or any of that stuff, understand that Minnesota is siphoning, they're at the federal teat, right? And so at the end of the day, for them to keep up the thing that they're doing, the thing that they're so upset about, it requires them to continue to be a part of the federal system. So don't make any mistake. Tim Walz and those people haven't suddenly got the fever for self-determination. They've caught the bug that says, what we want to do is we want to make enough stink that eventually we'll get control of the reins of power in Washington, D.C. again, and then we'll, continue our graft and fraud and all that other kind of nonsense, right? We'll continue to we'll reopen the floodgates and let people flood in, and we'll steal from taxpayers and give money to all this fraudulent nonsense. That's really what that's about. So don't make any mistake about it. This sudden buck up that's happening in Minnesota is not some idea now that they've gotten bitten by the states' rights bug, or they believe in self-determination and local self-government, because that's not what it is. But I will say this, and let me make the offer again for those who neglected to have their clipper ready. If they're serious about wanting to assert their status as an independent nation, we will help them out of the door. So, maybe it's time Tim Walz and all those other weirdos decide that if they want to put their money where their mouth is, I will head right on up to Minnesota, and we will help them understand how to structure it so they can leave. And you know what? Here's what's funny. Because of everything that's been uncovered in Minnesota, other states may really cheer it on, right? They may be like, yeah, dude, let's get these guys out of here, right? There's provisions for admitting states, but not necessarily any provisions for kicking them out. But I guarantee you legal scholars are probably looking at it right now. So, go get them, Tiger. Minnesota, if you're serious, call me. Give me a call. Let's do this. The punchline, they're not going to call. They're not serious about it. They want to continue to dip into the federal coffers, which, remember, the federal coffers, Uncle Scam digs his hand in your pocket to give it to stuff like that. If there's fraud that exists in Minnesota, it's because the federal government created it and enabled it. So that's the reality of it. I wonder if that's going to be the most controversial thing I say tonight. I don't know. You decide. All right. Wow. A big thank you to David for his contribution. Wow. $1,000 tonight. Thank you so much, David. You, sir, are the man. You're the man. I mean, that's phenomenal. Thank you so much. Okay, let's get down here to, honestly, I could, I really could just sit here and talk a long time about what David just did for us. That means a tremendous amount, David. Thank you. Wow. Okay. Let's get down here. Where was Chris's question? Chris in the TNM social chat asked, will Dan Patrick offer to donate to Minnesota leaving the Union? You mean like he didn't to CalExit? That is a callback to a very old and interesting joke. And it's not even really a joke, right? This is, for those of you who did not understand that question, let me repeat it. Chris asks, will Dan Patrick offer to donate to Minnesota leaving the Union? Okay, so for those of you who don't understand kind of the history or the context of that, at one time, Dan Patrick was caught, I think video or audio, and he had, I guess this was last election cycle, where he stated that he had made a contribution to the CalExit people to help them leave. What Dan Patrick doesn't know is that we have a close relationship with the CalExit people. So I picked up the phone. I said, Marcus, our lieutenant governor just made a really fascinating claim that he donated to the CalExit movement to help y'all leave. He said, hang on just a second. Let me check our donation records. So he clickety-clacks on his keyboard, and he says, there is no Dan Patrick. I said, well, look up Danny Gobe. Maybe he used his old name. No Danny Gobe either. So what you got is you got Dan Patrick lying about that, right? So much like he's apt to do, he kind of shoots his mouth off about things, thinking nobody's going to fact check him, right? And he got fact checked, and just silliness. So, but I guess that's the question. If we go up there and help out Minnesota to leave, will he be the first guy to make a contribution? I tell you what, Chris, here's what I'll do. If the Minnesota people take us up on the offer and we go help them, the first fundraising call for the Minnesota people will be to Lieutenant Governor Danny Gobe. We'll make it happen. Yeah, and Lori says she thinks Dan Patrick is currently busy rubbing elbows in Davos. For those of you who don't know, Dan Patrick is currently at the World Economic Forum. The thing that everybody gives grief to, Abbott and Crenshaw and, Soros, all that. It's, that's where he is. And of course, the idea ostensibly is to say, well, we're going to go in there and we're going to wreck shop and we're going to tell them how the cow ate the cabbage. But, I'm going to be honest with you. If I'm looking to stay clean, I'm not going to go swim through a cesspool to find a bar of soap. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of what it feels like. Okay, let's get down to some more questions. See what y'all got for me. Oh, look at that. Speaking of the topic, John Bolgiano, who is an awesome guy, by the way. He asks, will Dan Patrick crowing about his Davos activities be enough to let Texas voters see the current state leadership are globalists and not Texas first? That is a great question. And it's going to allow me to address the t-shirt that's on the Texian store, right, that we added, that says low information voters, low info voters kill republics, right? I will tell you that I don't think the vast majority of Republican primary voters or Texas general election voters know about Davos or the World Economic Forum, and probably don't even know that Dan Patrick is there. And so consequently, I don't know that they really think about things in those terms. Will it move the needle one way or the other? No, I don't really think it will. There's an adage in politics, particularly in campaigning, that says that if you're explaining, you're losing. And if you think about the average person you come across on the street and you say, hey, did you know that Dan Patrick is in Davos at the WEF right now? They're going to look at you like you're having a stroke, because individually they know what those words, some of them mean, but maybe not all strung together. Many aren't going to know who Dan Patrick is. They're not going to know what Davos is. Maybe if they're caught an episode or two of Doctor Who, they're going to think that's the guy who created the Daleks, right? They're not going to know what the WEF is. They're going to think, is that, okay, that's what the Wrestling Eastern Federation, they don't know, right? So now you've got to go through and you got to explain, well, Dan Patrick is your lieutenant governor. Well, what's a lieutenant governor, right? There are too many words in there to explain to people. And so with the attention spans as short as they are, you gotta do a lot of explaining. Now, does that give you opportunities to open up dialogue and talk to people about that? Absolutely. Does it immediately move the needle? It doesn't, because by the time you're done explaining to the number of people necessary to understand that him being that bad thing is a bad thing, the window for it to matter has passed. You got to realize we're March the 3rd is, early voting is like almost in just like a month, right? I mean, we're fast balling to the primary election. So, will that impact the election right now? Probably not. Does it give us the opportunity, lest I sound like a naysayer or a doom and gloomer, does it give us an opportunity moving forward? Absolutely it does. Because some people can be informed. They can be persuaded. They can be helped to understand that the World Economic Forum is bad. Davos is bad. Texas politicians bragging about attending that event and being a part of it is bad. And I don't care what the intent is. Well, I'm there to talk about religious freedom. Well, maybe you start talking about those things here in your own backyard, right? I mean, why are you going to the World Economic Forum to do it? It's already got, I mean, you're not, I mean, are you there to rehabilitate the event because it's gotten a bad rap? I mean, is that what your intention is? Why even do it? Well, we know that Dan Patrick is doing it because Donald Trump asked him to do it, or told him probably. But beyond that, it is globalism, and what they are effectively doing is you're not seeing this reassertion, this new sort of reassertion of nationalism. I think that has been the thing, because first and foremost, the United States is not a nation. The United States is an institution. But what you are seeing is really, they're not expressions of some sort of new nationalism. That is a bunch of bunk. It's not real. What you're seeing is a reshuffling and rebranding of globalism, right? It's just really, it's all you're seeing is fighting over who's going to be the central point, who is going to be that North Star of this new phase of globalism, because we all know that the globalists are failing, right? This massive resurgence of self-determination and independence. It's just more proof that this globalist experiment is failing. They're back on their heels. We've talked about this before. But don't make any mistake, what you are seeing coming out of Washington, D.C. right now is not some reassertion of nationalism, American nationalism, because what you're seeing is not America first. What you're seeing is just a pole shift so that the United States has the most influential seat at the globalist table. The ultimate goals of globalism have not changed, right? I mean, let's think about it. I mean, we could go back to that old video that we've got on our YouTube channel that explains that, you would think that globalism is just the opposite of nationalism, right? But it's not. It is a specific worldview that has dim views on borders and things of that. There's all these sorts of things. Well, when you begin to accumulate other nation states under your umbrella and you begin to eliminate those borders and you start to do the things that globalism is known for, well, that's not nationalism. That's still globalism. It's just rebranded, repackaged, reshuffled, and now expressed through a lens that is palatable to people who believe themselves to be American. It's a repackaging and rebranding of globalism is what it is. Thank you for that question, John. But to your point, do I think it's going to, let me bring that back up. Will it help? Is it enough to let Texas voters see the current state leadership or globalists? In and of itself, no. But as part of a larger fact pattern, I think it is helpful for us to be able to show that amongst all these other things. So, okay, next question. This comes in from Facebook. Texas number one asked Mr. Miller, oh, that's very formal. Is it because I'm wearing a jacket and a collared shirt? No need to be so formal. Mr. Miller, do you think I could start a TNM club at my high school with my friends? I absolutely think you could do that. I don't know what the rules are at your high school, but if that's something you would like to do, definitely reach out to the office and we'll help you. It would be the first one, and we would be more than happy to get sunk in to help you do that. I think we need TNM clubs at every high school campus, at every college campus. I would like to see it. And if you're going to be on the forefront, tip of the spear, buddy, let's make it happen. Reach out to the office. You've got the contact information right there on the website. Reach out to the office and we'll work with you to make it happen. You see, that's the kind of stuff that I mean, I just love it. Yeah. Come on, man. Let's go do this. I would love for this to be the first one. Let's do this. Let's make it happen. Okay. Okay, here's a good one. King, you guys on your screen names. See, I remember I'm old school, back from old school dial-up bulletin board systems. I don't talk. Maybe we'll have a conversation about that one time. But I love hacker handles. They don't call them that anymore. Everybody gets a handle. But used to old school code monkeys like me, we got hacker handles. But anyway, good evening, Mr. Miller. Good evening. What are your thoughts on the Senate race here in Texas? Me personally, if it ends up being Ken Paxton versus James Tallarico, I'm going Tallarico all the way. What about you? I really don't. I really don't know. You know, I've talked about this before. I have for many years had an aversion to voting in federal races as a matter of principle. I've never discouraged anyone from doing that or making the choice that they felt was best for Texas, right? So I can't really speak to that. Can't really speak to whether I'm going to vote in that race or not. You know, because like I said, I have had a principled aversion to pulling the lever in federal races. And look, that sometimes that hurts, right? When I ran for office and I made that statement, I mean, there were people that beat me over the head with it. So you're duty bound to do blah blah blah. It's like, buddy, you don't come into the voting booth with me. You don't know what I do, right? You don't get to tell me how to cast my vote, and that's just the reality of it. That being said, you know, that's an interesting race. That's all I can say. I can tell you that I think here's the challenge that I have with really kind of directly answering your question. I don't think it matters who we send to Washington, D.C. I just don't. I don't think it matters, because at the end of the day, the federal machine, the federal system is so rigged in favor of the House that it really, there is no state level pushback. You know, you got to remember the Senate, you know, the senators used to be appointed by the state legislatures, right? They were, in effect, ambassadors of the state, right? They were sent to represent the state. And when the amendment was passed to go to popular election of senators, it was one of the things that I think really sunk a nail in the coffin of the idea that the union could be saved. Now, it's been a slow burn, but I think it was enough to break the system enough that the reality is that you've got these popularly elected senators that just really just represent, and they're at-large candidates for the populace of the entire state, and they don't represent the interests of the particular state. So, you know, it's I'm not gonna fault you, not gonna argue with you about who you want to vote for, why you want to vote for, you know, what your rationale is. I'm just gonna say this: when Ken Paxton was in the Texas House and made a run against Joe Straus for Speaker of the House, Ken Paxton was literally the first person that our organization had ever endorsed in that race, because Joe Straus was an avowed opponent of letting the people of Texas vote on independence. And you know, we had conversations at the time, and we stood by it. When we had our lawsuit against Meta because of the Facebook censorship, the Attorney General's office under Ken Paxton filed an amicus brief in our favor, right, in federal court. And for that, we are greatly appreciative, and will always be so. But it's much like I tell a lot of these guys when they get ready, when they come to us and say they're going to go run for federal office, it's like there's not a lot we can do for you there, because ultimately you're making the choice to go into a system that is unfixable. And I hate to see our good guys leave Texas and go into a meat grinder in Washington, D.C., when ultimately what they do will be of no effect because we don't have representation or a voice. We have the illusion of representation, and we have a voice insofar as the system allows us to complain about it without actually changing anything. The federal system is irreparably broken. So there's that. But hey, thank you so much for your question. All right. Let's get over here to this one via email. This came from someone who's anonymous. Okay. Just wondering if the TNM will be doing anything special to commemorate the 165th anniversary of the day when Texas seceded from the U.S. The voting statistics really demonstrate the courage and foresight of the Texas forefathers. In convention on February 1st, 1861, by a vote of 166 to 7, and ratified by popular vote on February 23rd, which was 34,794 to 11,325. Look around you and remember in the year 1861, 3 out of every 4 people in the state of Texas voted to leave the Union. That is a fact. So to your question about whether we intend to do anything to commemorate it, I mean, I don't think we're going to be having any ceremonies or anything, right? But will we be doing our dead level best to remind the public that the people of Texas had their say once before? Sure. We've had it many times. Interestingly enough, and this was a fact that I did not know but Dr. Matt Kortrup, you guys have heard us talk about him. He's been on here before. He was the one who, from the academic study part of it, as an expert in referendums and independence referendums specifically, he's the one that pointed out to me something that I did not know, which was that Texas became essentially the standard for change of governmental relationships by referendum, right? I mean, Texas had a vote to leave the Union or to join the Union. We had a vote to withdraw from the Union, right? And so apparently our referendum situation, which was pure Article 1, Section 2, was relatively unique and essentially set the global standard for popular referenda on the issues of self-determination. So will we talk about it? Absolutely. Will we try to inform as many people as possible? Absolutely. That will happen because it is a part of our history, and our history deserves to be communicated, especially when it can, as it does now, really inform what we are doing moving forward. Excuse me. All right. I'm a little bit over time. All right. So a reminder for those of you joining us, if you're just now joining us, you still have time to get your questions in. You can email them to coffeetalk@vtnm.org. Or if you're on YouTube, you can drop them in the chat. If you are in Facebook, do likewise. Rumble, do likewise. X, do likewise. And if you're on TNM Social, you can drop them there because we're live streaming on our own platform. It's so cool, right? All right, let me scan over here. Excuse me. I know that was unpleasant to hear, but weather changes are killing me. Caleb asks, Mr. Miller, what are your thoughts on the U.S.'s recent use of sonic weapons in Venezuela and how its use may or may not affect Texas independence? I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be honest with you, Caleb. I have thought about that whole Venezuela raid an awful lot, particularly in the context of what we're doing here. And, I think the sonic weapons, the reported effects by Venezuela security, I did not find any of that surprising at all. I did not. We've known, I think, or suspected for a long time that the United States military has access to some pretty crazy hardware, right? I mean, they've got some really crazy hardware out there. And I've, there has been this discussion floating around that This was all derivatives of the captured hardware that they got related to the attacks on U.S. ambassadorial residences or diplomats in Cuba, so-called Havana syndrome, that somehow they got their hands on some of this portable tech and were able to scale it up and to utilize drones to deploy the technology and amplify the effects via standing waves. I've thought about this a lot, not just in the context of Texas independence, but just the very geeky, nerdy side of me is very curious about these things. That being said, my thoughts about it are pretty much exactly where they were before, which is it's one thing to deploy those types of weapons against a populace of people that are not you, right? I mean, deploy them in Venezuela or China or wherever. But deploying them here against a populace whose only crime is to vote in a way that you don't want, I think I don't think it's plausible. But that being said, we are now seeing these capabilities displayed publicly, and understand that the pendulum never stays to one side of the clock. It always swings. And there are a lot of things that are being set under the Trump administration as precedent that can and will be used by someone of opposite ideology when they grab the reins of power. Whether it's the use of executive orders to do do various things, whether it's the utilization of the military in non-normal circumstances, which we could talk about the Venezuela situation all day. I think there's some kind of interesting legal and international implications about that, but that's not the point here, right? What does that do for us? Well, it doesn't change our course at all, right? We continue to do what we're going to do, and we're going to continue to do it above board, because deploying that against a security force, an isolated security force that is protecting one guy, is very different than deploying it against a population where you just had 9.2 million people vote for their own independence, right? So very different scenario, but it is a really good question. And yes, I have thought an awful lot about it. More probably than I should have. It shows you that my mind doesn't turn off about these sorts of things. Okay, let's see what else we got here. All right, here is one via email from Larry. What do we need to know about 2026? I'm guessing you're talking about the TNM and what our plans are for 2026. There's going to be, and I talked about this on the last coffee talk. We've got an all hands meeting coming with leadership. There is some changes that are taking place, and all of 2026, the plans for the entire year being finalized out. But here's some things that you can expect. Here are the things that I could spoil for you right now. Number one, you're going to see a renewed commitment to expanding capacity in the field. So we're going to be looking for people just like you and everybody else out there to help us get engaged in the counties, to spin up organizations, to build capacity. If you don't know what that means, go to TNM.social and take the TEXIT blueprint course. Okay. So you're going to see that, and you're going to see a lot of action, a lot of focus on that particular thing. You're going to see the return of more in-person events for the TNM, at least one retreat, and very likely a November return for TEXIT. We're still trying to work that out. You will see the TNM have a presence at the Republican Party of Texas State Convention. That will happen. You will see more in-person events, whether it be workshops, whether you see people out there giving the TEXIT Blueprint seminar in your area, whatever that looks like. So that. You're going to see for 2026 a cohesive, more unified communication plan and strategy for the TNM, very focused on those that are members of the TNM, those that have actually taken that step to become members. We have for many, many years suffered from spread, right? Our resources get spread too thin because we spread them amongst people whose literally their only engagement with the organization is to register their support, and then they vaporize, right? We know that they will be with us when the vote comes. We can count on them to vote yes, but beyond that, they're okay. So that's cool. So now we've established the rules of the road. We've established a relationship. But there are people out there like those of you out there right now, or the young man who wanted to start a high school club, or David, who made the significant contribution, or Eric, or others. Those that are logging into TNM Social, those that are volunteering, those that are wanting to lead in their local areas and help us organize, those that are members. These people that are true Texians, right? And so you're going to see a renewed focus on supplying them and interacting with them and building community around them. Not that we're discounting anybody else or shuffling them out there, right? But we have a responsibility as an organization to focus on those people that are standing shoulder to shoulder with us. Sure, when Houston's army was marching in the runaway scrape and then marching across the plains of San Jacinto, the back of their minds were the people that they were fighting for. But more important in that moment, it was the people that they were fighting with. And so that's where a lot of our focus is going to be. We're going to be tapping some of you to take up larger roles in the organization. We're going to work on a much deeper roster. We're going to be preparing for the legislative session. We're going to come out of the primaries again with Texas First pledge signers that are going to be their party's nominee, who will absolutely win their general election. And so, March the 3rd is the primary. March the 4th, we begin working on our legislative strategy. So, 2026 is going to be a banner year for us. And I think for any of you out there, let me just tease you with this. For any of you out there that are thinking, well, there's just not a lot of momentum right now. You're not seeing it, right? That's because you're not locked in. I want you to understand something. And let me be very clear about this. The analysis, the data, everything tells us that November will likely signal a massive outpouring of support and a lot of new people stepping into the TNM. If that is the case, we must have the capacity to not only absorb them, but orient them, organize them, and deploy them. We, get everybody moving in the same direction so that we can get done what we need to get done in the legislative session. The day after the general election, the day after all of that hits is not the time you start capacity building. That is the time now. We have to be, as an organization, completely ready to do that. We have to be able to scale. We have to be able to bring new people in. As I said, organize them, orient them, deploy them, focus, do all those kinds of things. This is the time when that's built. And so a lot of 2026, that's where it's going to happen. So I know that was a very general overview. Larry, thank you for asking, but it's a very general overview, but hopefully it gives you a taste of what you should be expecting out of the TNM in 2026. Okay. Here's a question. This came in. Hang on. Let me check over here. Okay. Yeah, here we go. All right. This is going to have to be my last question for tonight. This is from James. James says, what do you think of Steve Bannon's possible run for president? I know he's not a states' rights man. What say you? Steve Bannon is not a friend of Texas independence or the TNM. There is a video on the YouTube channel, and if you guys remind me, I'll dig it out and I'll play it for you next time. but you can go over there to our YouTube channel and watch it anyway. But Bannon, it was during CPAC, I don't know what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whenever it was, up in Dallas. Anyway, Bannon had gotten on, what's the channel he's on? Is it America's Voice, OA, whichever one it was, and just totally ran his mouth about us. I mean, just trash talked. And so at CPAC, because it had happened that morning. So at CPAC, on one of the other shows, they had me there to respond to what he said. And the fun part about it is the response that I gave was pretty harsh. But the funny part about it was, is Bannon walked literally right beside me to back over to where the camera was when I was returning fire, so to speak. So the whole time I'm looking at the camera and responding, I'm looking past the camera at him. So I had the opportunity to respond effectively directly to him. So, have things changed for him? I don't know. I don't know if things have changed for him or not. I know that, ultimately he has said that they have. And so I have to assume that things are as they have been. And if that's the case, look, somebody who is not a friend of the TNM, I don't have a lot of time for. So I don't care if Steve Bannon's going to run for president or dog catcher. I can't be bothered. It doesn't matter to me. Right. But I literally just don't care. I don't care. He doesn't impact me. I mean, any guy who had his picture hung in Jeffrey Epstein's house, probably not going to get along with us anyway. Right. And I know he's been doing his show from Texas. I'm glad he's given some exposure to some of the activists here in Texas, Joanne Fleming. I saw Lynn Davenport and others. That's great. They need exposure, but don't conflate the communication medium with the person behind it. And so what if he runs for president? I don't care. I just, I evaluate, call me simplistic, but I evaluate these candidates, these people in how they are going to advance the cause of Texas independence. Look, I am the epitome of the single issue voter. I'm going to vote for or against someone based on their stance on or how it helps advance the cause of Texas independence. Sometimes not even, maybe their stance doesn't even matter. But whether or not that person, their election or them not being in office, how it will impact the advancement of Texas becoming a self-governing independent nation. That's it. I am the epitome of a single issue voter. And I'm going to let me just lay it out here for you right now, because you're going to hear a lot of rhetoric about this, and it's not rhetoric, it's just reality. And here's the bottom line. If you're not a single issue voter on the independence issue, you're not going to get it. That's just the reality of it. You've got to be, and you have to be in sufficient enough quantities to be able to swing an election based on that one issue and that one issue alone. You got to treat it like all of these other issues. Some people, like, we've got a situation right now where we have someone who is ostensibly a supporter of Texas independence, who is going hard in the paint against a pro-independence legislator for a stance that they took on something else. And what that means is that they value that other thing above the independence thing. It is the proverbial cart before the horse. And so, I'm not telling you, you gotta surrender everything else. You have to look at the totality of it, but you have to start ranking things through that lens and understand that all of these other things are sort of negotiable and transitory until we get our independence. None of it really matters because we don't get much of a say. Independence breaks the back of the political establishment. You focus on independence, you get independence, you break the back of the political establishment, the rest of the dominoes fall in place, right? That's the reality of it. And so, my admonition to all of you, I'm not telling you be like me, but I'm telling you, if you want independence, you are going to have to be a bit of a single issue voter. Not entirely a single issue voter, but at least prioritize what's important, right? why would you want to torpedo a pro-independence legislator who is on paper 99.9% aligned, but differs on one particular thing? Why would you do that? Well, then that tells me that independence is not a priority for you. It's this other thing that's the big priority, right? And that's how you screw around and not get independence. That's how you fragment out. That's how you shatter like glass. And we got to be hard. You got to be solid like a cannonball. That's what the independence voting block has got to be, so you can just propel forward and punch through whatever. And the idea that somehow we can all be differently aligned on these things and somehow get independence is kind of like saying, well, I'm going to beat a man to death with a bowl of Jello. It's just never going to happen, right? So hopefully that answers your question, James. All right. All right. I would like to get to these, but guys, I'm out of time. The question that just came in, for someone that I already answered, you know who you are. You send in on YouTube, drop it via email, and I will respond with an article on the Texian Partisan, because I want to answer that, but I'm just out of time, and I'm sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Let's concentrate on making TEXIT happen sooner rather than later. We need to worry about getting TEXIT. Yes, truth. All right, guys. Look, that's going to have to be it for tonight. Like I said, I am out of town, but I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in to Late Night Golf Talk. For those of you sending in questions, those of you participating in the chat. And look, I'm going to just take another moment here. And if I didn't drive this point home before, I'm going to do it now. You should really be hanging out with us on TNM Social, right? We created our own social media system with our own mobile app and everything else, our own network specifically for TNM supporters, right? For those who support Texas, those who want to help make Texas a nation, a self-governing independent nation. This is why TNM Social exists, free from the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world that will jerk access for just posting a link to texitnow.org. So if you're not on there, you need to go. You need to go over there. You need to install the mobile app. You need to. Many of you are on here tonight simply because you got a push notification through that app. I'm watching you people connect every single solitary day on TNM Social. Great conversations happening. No, not everybody agrees on everything, but that's the cool part. The main thing is what we keep the main thing, and that is Texas independence. So that is, you got to go do that. Head over to tnm.social and get that squared away today. Additionally, look, if you you should have already gotten your TEXIT hoodies, right, and your sweatshirts, because weather's going to be cold this weekend. So if you haven't got it, I'm not going to say it's going to make it in time, but just in case for the next time, head over to texianstore.com. That's where you get all your TNM branded merchandise, all your TEXIT merch, and all the proceeds go to support the mission of the Texas Nationalist movement. Additionally, you heard me mention it earlier. Get your news over at texianpartisan.com. Here in just a short beginning of the month, you're going to see this month in the TNM, the new video posted over there, articles all the time, Q&As, Mythbusters, Texas news, our perspective. Look, if you want current events and from the perspective of Texas nationalists, and you want all of these questions answered, all the things that you hear from people all the time, or you want to see myths busted, this is where you go. Go to texianpartisan.com. Check it out every single solitary day. Additionally, look, if you've got fundamental questions about Texas independence, head over to texitnow.org. Again, that's texitnow.org. It is the encyclopedia. I mean, it's literally the largest TEXIT FAQ you will see. So be sure to check that out. My friends, that is going to be a wrap for tonight. And so I want to thank you all so very much for joining me here this week. Hopefully, I will see you guys next week. I want you to stay warm and stay safe over this next few days. And I will leave you with the words I leave you with every time we're together. They're not my words. They're the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now, and the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.